2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
GrokTALK.
Okay, it is GrokTALK. It is January 10th. It is 2015. And there's a lot going on today. The NHGOP convention is today. We'll probably try to squeeze in some discussion about amendments at some point today. We also wanted to announce that for those of you who are interested, the French consulate is holding a vigil at Boston Common today at noon, if you'd like to go down there and participate in that. For the Charlie Hebdo executions by jihadis, and to stand up basically for free speech and free press.
Yes.
Another announcement, and you can go to Gerard at Large to get the details, because he talked about this for about a half hour yesterday. Dr. Julianne Cooper, who has been a frequent guest on this show, and a much more frequent guest on his show, is suffering from pancreatic cancer and does not have very long left by the looks of things. My dad got pancreatic cancer, and from the time he was diagnosed to the time he passed away, it was 8 weeks. She's had it, I think, longer, but they caught it early. Unfortunately, there's really nothing you can do for pancreatic cancer. I mean, if you have a lot of money, you might be able to last a few years, but there's no cure for it. So she has reached the near the end, and so everybody's asking for thoughts and prayers for Dr. Cooper, and certainly now and later your financial support for the school she started.
Liberty Harbor
Academy
in Manchester.
And Rich does a great job of talking about how important that was in the development of the school, and how Dr. Cooper was a driving force behind it. In her absence, they will need lots of help, both financial and moral, and we'd like you to, reach out and help them. Less pressing type news. A lot of talk about a constitutional convention. We might be able to touch on that.
In fact, we need to book one of the guys who's promoting it, have the contact information.
Okay, we'll do that. Darlene Pollock will be with us for a New Hampshire Right to Life update, talk about some legislative things coming forward. Guy Comtois supposed to be here, haven't heard from him. Maybe he'll be here, maybe he won't. Maybe we'll call him, we'll find out. Our guests are Dr. Jason Sorens, the founder of the Free State Project. We're going to talk about a new initiative that he's working on. Kevin Kervick is joining us after that to talk about some news that's just hit the internet about the president of SNHU and social justice. And then in the final segment, we'll just do what we do, talk about squirrels or whatever. So, yes. Any subject is open to debate. There's a lot of them. We will have the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. We'll cover some local issues. Hassan 2.0, perhaps. Dave Wheeler had a nice editorial that he sent out with regard to Governor Hassan's inauguration speech.
Bipartisanship, yes.
All sorts of neat things like that. And we'll try to squeeze in a legislative update of some kind, one way or another. And maybe we'll talk about how UNH wants $200 million so that they don't have to raise tuition for in-state students. We might squeeze that in as well.
But raise taxes for everyone else.
Everybody else pays for those couple of folks, yeah. So we're really excited about that.
Can I start the show off with one quote from Instapundit?
Please.
As many as 64 Dartmouth College students, including some athletes, could face suspension or other disciplinary measures for cheating in an ethics class this past fall. Glenn
Sports ethics, yes.
I love that it was an ethics class.
Sports ethics.
Well,
There's a class in sports ethics.
Well, it was just ethics here. And you got to go, is this a sign of our culture? You got to cheat in ethics. The fact that they actually have to teach an ethics class says something as well.
I mean, you can teach ethics by all means. There's no reason not to teach that, but you should teach the broad, total concept, historically speaking.
Yes.
Right. Then the problem with modern college classes, especially in Bender studies or ethics, is that they're basically totally made up fictitious studies that denigrate all of the traditional morals of American society.
My running joke with regard to that is professors in or to get a degree in left-handed albino lesbian studies. That's what it is, because that's pretty obscure, and you know.
And so
I've actually read something very similar.
And here's the thing: the only thing that degree is good for is to become a professor in teaching left-handed albino lesbian studies. That's it.
Right, because nobody wants you otherwise, including right-handed albino
But every
lesbians.
university has to have one, including SNHU, which we'll talk about with Kevin Kervick. Guy's not here yet, so we're going to move right into Darlene.
So my point to that is, these made-up studies classes are so obtuse that you basically have to cheat to pass.
Well, there is no right answer, so it's impossible to fail.
Oh, wait a minute. You say the wrong thing in one of those classes, I can guarantee you there's a wrong answer.
Well, it's equally subjective in reverse. You offend the teacher and all your answers are wrong no matter what.
That's true.
I'd love to be able to audit some of these classes just to give them a pain in the butt type situation.
Some students you can get like reviews of professors online and stuff, and I'm sure there's a few of them that have written some choice words. We could probably go dig them up.
Yeah, but they try and shut down that speech, too.
Yeah, we're going squirrels again.
We're going squirrels. Anyway, instead of starting with a legislative update, we'll start with a Right to Life update. Hi, Darlene. How you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good. Glad to have you here. Filling in for Jane. Jane will probably usually do it, but we're happy to have Darlene. Anybody in the Right to Life movement in New Hampshire is welcome to come in and do the segment. Once a month, we want to talk about legislation, where things are, what's going on, and that's why you're here.
I didn't bring my list of legislation that we're looking at.
That's okay.
I didn't know this was legislative. I thought we were talking about the March for Life.
We can talk about the March, too. Let's do that.
Anything to do with right to life, whatever's top of your mind.
Which reminds me, I still have to put up that thing that Jane asked me to put up. I've been a bad boy.
So please, March for Life.
We're going to have Catherine Adair come to our March for Life this year. And Catherine worked at a Planned Parenthood across from Boston University.
My alma mater.
Yeah. Oh. And she worked there for a couple of years. And one of the really, really big things that I remember from her talk, because I heard her a couple of years ago, is that after a while of working there, she moved through different segments of the clinic there. And so she's going to tell us all about what goes on behind the doors of these clinics, and she's going to let us know exactly what happens there. And one of the big things that stuck in my mind was that they promoted her to a medical assistant. And I quickly raised my hand and I said, "You mean they gave you tuition reimbursement so that you could go to school and get a degree, that's called a medical assistant?" She said, "No, they just put an MA after my name and told me I could call myself a medical assistant."
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's qualifications.
Right. So that's the kind of stuff that goes on in these places. I used to be a plumber.
Now I'm a medical assistant.
Right.
Left-handed albino
studies. Yes, left-handed albino lesbian studies. Let's make sure we insult everybody in that group all at once.
Yeah.
Okay,
I didn't say any of that to insult Catherine.
Of course not.
She's an intelligent person, and when she finally realized, what exactly she was doing, and she sort of saw the light, she came out of that quickly. She's got a wonderful marriage and a family down in Massachusetts, and she's out proclaiming and pronouncing the pro-life ethic wherever she goes at this point in time. And
I hate to interject, but I think you really bring up something that's very important, because behind the scenes there is a lot going on. There's been a movement afoot across the nation where a lot of the abortion mills, abortion clinics, especially by those by Planned Parenthood, laws have been passed that say you have to meet the standards of a regular outpatient surgical center because you are performing a major procedure. Mm-hmm. And certainly we've seen the left rail against that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it goes back to that simple example you said. Oh, you now are a medical assistant. Under what grounds? Right. And you see the Gosnell from Philadelphia, the horrible conditions that are there, and I mean, it just fits their own narrative that they don't want exposed.
Right. We had a bill here a few years ago to license the clinics so that they would comply with I mean, even Burger King has more regulations on it as far as cleanliness, etc., than our clinics here in New Hampshire. New Hampshire in particular. I don't know about all other states, but I know some others are fighting the same thing. And they fought that really hard. I was there testifying before the legislature, and basically it said, we don't need a license. We're all licensed, and I said, well, why are we here then? That's not the truth. The fact of the matter is that these people kill people for a living, so they're not in any way shy of lying about it. That's what they do, so it's really not a problem for them. And I find that everybody dies. I mean, we call ourselves right to life, but everybody does die. What we oppose is the government-sanctioned murder of people, from conception to their natural death at whatever age, whatever disability, whatever impediments they have. That's what we're standing against. And so the March for Life this year will come out, and we'll meet first at the landfill. I don't know if everybody here knows that there are babies buried at the landfill.
Where? Which?
In the landfill in Concord. In 1985, one of the people working the landfill found a number of babies. He wasn't sure how many, in jars, some of them broken, some of them intact, and he immediately, called around to see what could be done about it. And one of our board members, Kathy Souza, was told about it, and she petitioned the city of Concord to exhume those bodies for a proper burial. And it took so long for that process to happen that they ended up being bulldozed over. So those babies are still all at the landfill there. So the first thing that we do is we have a memorial service there at 9 o'clock in the morning, and this is next week. So next Saturday at 9 a.m. we'll have a memorial service there at the Concord landfill, and that's where we'll start our day. And then there's a mass at St. John's, and then we'll gather at the State House steps at 11:30, 11:40. Some people will be there earlier, some people will be there later. And we'll sort of have an intro for Catherine, and we'll talk about safety issues, etc. And then we'll come and walk past the clinic there, the feminist, excuse me, health center. Sorry. And then we'll go to St. John's and we'll hear our speaker.
While you were talking, I did some digging on some LSRs. I pulled up 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4.
I know there are 7.
LSR 467 was life at conception. Mm-hmm. 75 was repealing the clinic access prohibition, which hasn't been enforced, but is still on the books. LSR 258 was to ban abortion after viability, and of course Warren Groen's bill, which has gotten a lot of attention, which has no public funding for abortion clinics.
And of all of those, I would think that the least controversial would be the public funding of public tax monies, especially from people who believe abortion is outright murder. Mm-hmm. Now, I know that with the piece that Jane Cormier asked me to post, which I started yesterday, haven't finished yet, like everything else. But what distracted me to some degree is at NARAL here in New Hampshire, the abortion proponents are having a shindig. I guess 30 people at least have signed up at $50 a head. Later on, either this month or next month, they're going to be honoring Executive Counselor Colin Von Ostern as their choice champion of 2015. What an accolade to be known for. I'm a great baby killer. And that's really what it comes down to. And I think
guess Mike, you need to put his face on somebody with an SS uniform or something really offensive.
So whose face is this?
Colin Von Ostern, the executive counselor. He's being promoted by NARAL. And I know you're doing a little research there.
That's fine. I was researching for the WTFs, but yeah, absolutely. It will be my pleasure. I don't know if I can achieve quite the standard of my captain of the Moral Enterprise Photoshop a couple of years back, but if there's a uniform that fits, I'll make him wear it.
All right, we're going to take a really, really quick break. We'll come right back with Darlene. I still haven't been able to get a hold of Guy, so we must have crossed wires someplace. We'll be right back after this.
It's the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
I really can't stay.
Baby, it's cold outside.
It is cold outside.
Gotta go away.
Baby, it's cold outside.
It's really cold outside. Not as cold as it was a couple of days ago.
A couple of nights ago, we had -8 in my area.
Mine was -18, and I have the frozen hydrogen peroxide from my car first aid kit to prove it.
It is cold outside. But it's January in New England.
True.
It's supposed to be cold. It's supposed to be cold, and it's cold. Wow. Imagine that.
Climate.
Anyway, we're back with Darlene. We can talk about Warren's bill. We were talking about that after the public funding issue. Mike made a great point. Planned Parenthood has tons of money.
It's a private corporation. It has donors. It doesn't need government, and it doesn't need to pick your pocket. And that's the whole point. You know, and if the federal government bypasses the state legislature and funds it anyway, that's fine. Eventually, the states will rise up and defund the federal government over other issues.
I don't know about that.
Well, that's what has to happen.
New York and California and Illinois probably won't.
No.
Delaware, Maryland, Massachusetts. There's only really, I mean, what is it? How many Republican legislatures are there? There's 30.
2/3 are Republican controlled now.
Right. So, I mean, I was talking to my wife the other day. I said, yeah, really, there's only like 11, 12, 15 states that are really, really bad blue states. It's just the rest of them are all run by Republicans pretty much, and they vote Republican. They just have smaller populations. And she's like, really? I'm like, yeah.
Most of the government
really,
are
Raggy?
Republican.
You know.
Yeah.
So.
And that's why we have senators, and that's why we have the Electoral College, because if we didn't, those bad blue states would own everything.
So, Darlene, I mean, you guys obviously have to deal with this issue all the time. If people always talking about Planned Parenthood public funding, what's your approach? What do you tell people?
Well, we find it abhorrent that the government sanctions the murder of innocent people in the most vulnerable of our society anyway, and then to pick our pockets to do it, as stated by Mike, is doubly abhorrent. It's just a terrible thing, and because they're forcing everyone to pay for this thing that we oppose with all of our hearts, with our pocketbooks, with our resources. I mean, I saw a quote yesterday that there's a public woman, I can't remember her name, but she was saying that pro-lifers are just like terrorists. We're terrorists. And I thought,
what?
Yeah, she said that pro-lifers were terrorists. They should be on that.
Who are the ones doing the murders exactly?
Right. And the thing is that now some of you know my story and how I grew up, and I didn't know there were good people in the world, really good people in the world until I was about 18 years old. People who would put themselves out for other people for no benefit to themselves. But since that time, a long time, I'm talking 30 years now, I've known tons and tons of people who are pro-life who do exactly that. They put themselves out for other people. They'll take them into their homes. They provide homes. They empty their pockets of cash and resources. They loan cars. They do all kinds of things. They do all these baby bottle drives. They provide goods and services for people who are in crisis pregnancies. The pro-life people are the most generous, giving people on the face of the earth. They're the salt of the earth. They're just awesome. And to equate them with terrorists is just absurd. The people in the government who are taking our money, forcefully taking our money, because everybody knows how much power the IRS has, they're taking our money and using it for this practice against our will and without our consent, I think is just probably one of the worst things that the government is doing right now.
Well, remember, progressivism, which is in control of social issues like that, and which is one reason I just don't understand why the Republican Party just wants to go limp and fight no social justice type stuff, because every social issue has a fiscal cost to it, as you just very well explained. I just lost my train of thought.
You're supposed to say I just derailed my train of thought. It's a much more clever turn of phrase.
Oh. No, I didn't go there.
No, you didn't derail it?
But you're right. Progressives want everybody to pay for everything. They want everybody to have a stake in their utopia. And in their... I mean, you go back to what Obama said. He does not want his 2 daughters to be punished with a child. One of the worst turns of phrases
well, then they shouldn't.
ever.
His daughters shouldn't punish some guy with a relationship.
Ooh,
I like that.
Yeah,
I like
that.
After all, based on the behavior of Michelle and Michelle Mayer as they traveled the world a couple of years ago, nobody would want to meet the Robinsons as mother-in-law or grandmother-in-law.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because you see that dichotomy of the culture on one hand. The punishment, that having a baby is a punishment. And then you have the Robertsons who embrace what I consider to be traditional values of its life, and you don't do those kinds of things.
I was referring to Robinsons as in Michelle's parents.
Oh, I was thinking Robertsons as in Duck Dynasty. I'm sorry. Never mind. I'll keep quiet.
Which is why you wouldn't want those folks as your mother-in-law or grandmother-in-law, because those two terrorized Chinese hotel workers when they went there on vacation.
Yes.
That's what I thought you were referring to.
I'm sorry. I goofed.
Yeah.
All right, I'm trying to see if I can get a hold of
the Robertsons are people we love to be married into and going on hunting trips with.
Yes, that's true.
All right, where am I here? Okay, so what else is coming up? There's a lot going on. It's an endless battle.
It is an endless battle.
You have more events coming up this year?
We do. We have Teresa Burke is supposed to be coming up to teach medical people, meaning social workers that deal with these things, and nurses and physician's assistants and nurse practitioners about pregnancy loss, and that'll include abortion trauma. So that is going to be in March, and then. Well, we're always at the Women's Expo in Manchester. And we have Soulfest. We go out and have a booth out at Soulfest.
In my hometown?
Yes, in your hometown. So we have stuff going on. And, of course, the legislation will be... there aren't a lot of bills, but I really think they're going to be contentious. I really think they're going to be very contentious. They usually are, but I think that we have a renewed force with Jane Cormier, and we have a lot of people on the board of New Hampshire Right to Life that are really trying to move forward. We are going to get a new office space right here in Concord, New Hampshire. And so we'll be more vocal on social media and out in print and in the public. And we plan to make a pretty good splash this year. The legislation that is before us is the list that you have, and there's a few more things, are one front that we're fighting, but we have cases against Planned Parenthood and the state of New Hampshire for which I can't really get into, but we have some legal cases that are going on, which is something we're working on. And then, of course, we have a lot of other initiatives. We're going around the state and sort of planting small groups of pro-life people and or supporting the groups that are already there. Reaching out into the colleges, and we'll be bringing Pillars of Personhood up. That's kind of a big thing, except that we don't have a date yet.
Now, what is that?
Pillars of Personhood is an all-day intensive training on what the basis for establishing personhood is according to the 14th Amendment, which gives us that government protection of the God-given right of personhood. So it's, according to the 14th Amendment, the right to be safe, basically not have a possession stolen and not to have our life taken without just
Due process.
Due process, yeah. There's another word in there, but I missed it. And so that'll be an all-day training, and then we'll go out and present that in a public sphere. So whether or not that's at a fair or at a college hasn't been determined yet. I'm working really hard on trying to get us into a college because there are some graphic images to one panel of the 4-panel project that we bring. The panels are 5 by 9, so it's a really big display that you walk around, and it takes about 15 minutes to walk around the entire display discussing personhood.
Are you doing this outside?
Usually we do it outside.
Are you anticipating what has happened in other college campuses where the pro-abortionists have come through and destroyed those things? I think of the UC Berkeley case where a couple of teenagers had come over to exercise their free right of speech, and this professor on the idea of left-handed, whatever it was you said.
Albino lesbian studies.
Thank you. Kind of destroyed it and also attacked the kids when they wanted their stuff back. And we see this over and over again. The crosses that are laid out for...
It's all about tolerance.
Tolerance and diversity, but not diversity of color, but not diversity of ethics and thought. That's for sure.
Especially morals.
And
because thought is
well, then we get into
morals,
social justice,
yeah,
the morals.
We'll get to that.
All over the place.
We haven't got enough time in this segment to cover all of that, but
yeah.
Is there any movement in New Hampshire to get the state to keep track of how many abortions there are?
That's one of the bills that you didn't
get
put down.
Okay.
And so actually there was a mandate from the federal government to do just that. And there's a handful of states that haven't done it. New Hampshire is one of them.
Okay, because that's always been whenever we've gone out, and every year the Telegraph puts up an article that says number of abortions down or number of teen pregnancies down. They say number of teen pregnancies decreased, and the first time I saw that I said, well, how many of those decreased because the babies were aborted? Because I'm pretty sure you would not take that into consideration. You would consider a teen pregnancy to be one that came to term and they had a baby. But and people were like, yeah, really? And I'm like, where do we find that out? And I learned we couldn't.
Not New Hampshire.
Not New Hampshire. So.
And the Guttmacher Institute, which it was originally connected directly to Planned Parenthood, but now they've sort of separated legally. They're still connected, but legally they're not Planned Parenthood anymore. Does produce some statistics, but only for the Planned Parenthood clinics, is my understanding. I could be wrong. They could lump in the Concord Feminist
Health
Center and the one over in Greenland, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, we're at the end of our segment. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
And spending some time with us. Coming up, Kevin Kervick. Before that, Jason Sorens, the founder of the Free State Project, will be joining us to talk about a new initiative that he's involved in. He is now a professor at Dartmouth College right here. He's living up in Lebanon, and we're going to have him on the program in a few minutes. Again, thank you, Darlene. And this is GrokTALK. I'm Steve here with Mike and Skip, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
When asked whether she still supports Obamacare, Senator Jeanne Shaheen said,
"Yes, I do continue to support the law. We're beginning to see some positive results."
How can Senator Shaheen say we're seeing positive results when 22,000 of our neighbors have already lost their health insurance? What's worse, the Boston Globe reports the state's only health insurance provider radically reduced the number of hospitals in their network, forcing some people to drive over an hour for lab work, even when there's a hospital within a few miles of their home. When pressed about lack of access, Shaheen said,
"There are some hospitals that are not covered, unfortunately, and I certainly hope that's going to change."
Jeanne Shaheen promised us we could keep our doctors and our healthcare coverage. Now she hopes we can get to a local hospital? Call Senator Shaheen at 603-647-7500. Tell her we need more than hope. We need leadership. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning. The Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning. You're listening to GrokTALK.
Grok TV.